Episode 7. If you are joining us for this stage of the asset progression roadmap, massive congratulations are in order. You've done it. You hit that minimum occupation period. You've cashed out your executive condo or your resale HDB flat, and your war chest is officially loaded. You are now ready to step into the unrestricted private property market. But here's the thing about the open market. It means a whole lot more choices, and unfortunately, a lot more opportunities to make some really expensive mistakes. So think of this explainer as your ultimate survival guide to navigating your very first private condo purchase.
Here is our game plan for today. We're going to cover welcome to the open market, new launch versus resale, the specific criteria for capital appreciation, the step-by-step buying process, and we'll wrap up with a really powerful concept called the rental arbitrage strategy.
All right, part 1. Welcome to the open market.
You are officially graduating from the highly structured, heavily regulated world of public housing and stepping into a much higher stakes arena, but you're ready for it. Your war chest is loaded. Based on a standard progression roadmap, you're likely sitting on somewhere around $440,000 in accumulated equity when you combine your cash and your CPF. That is huge. You're empowered, you have the capital, and you're perfectly positioned to deploy it into a serious wealth-building asset.
Before we get into the weeds, we really need to understand the new environment we're walking into. Think of the restricted HDB market as having a safety net. You had income ceilings, and you had those strict 5-year minimum occupation period restrictions. Basically, the government heavily managed the space. But out here in the unrestricted private condo market, there are no HDB rules, no income ceilings whatsoever, no MOP restrictions. You literally have boundless freedom to buy, rent, and sell whenever you want. But keep in mind, with complete freedom comes the absolute responsibility of making the right strategic choices, because the market isn't going to hold your hand anymore.
Moving to section 2, new launch versus resale. This is your very first crossroads.
It really comes down to this. Are you buying directly from a developer or are you buying from an existing owner? Let's look at the breakdown. With a new launch condo, you're buying directly from the developer. The perks? You pay progressively as the building goes up, you get beautifully branded, modern finishes, and very often you get built-in appreciation by the time you finally collect those keys. The catch, of course, is the wait. You're looking at a solid 3 to 4 year construction period, plus the risk of construction delays. Now flip that to a resale condo bought on the open market. The biggest pro here is immediate gratification. You can move in or rent it out right away, you can negotiate directly with the seller, and you can actually walk through the exact unit before you buy it. The cons? Well, you are paying current market rates, and you'll likely be dealing with older fittings that might require a hefty renovation budget.
So how do you choose? It's all about figuring out what aligns with your personal strategy. Our source material gives us this really definitive rule of thumb. New launch for prime districts, resale for established districts where you want immediate rental yield. It makes perfect sense, right? If you were targeting those prime districts like 9, 10, or 11, or maybe an upcoming growth corridor, a new launch is an incredibly powerful tool for capital appreciation. But if your main goal is getting immediate cash flow and strong rental yield, an established resale unit is absolutely your best bet.
All right, section 3, criteria for capital appreciation. Let's talk about picking a winning unit. You've probably heard the old real estate saying, location, 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 right? Well, in Singapore, it's more like MRT, MRT, MRT. And the absolute golden rule here is 500 meters. You want to aim for a unit that is within 500 meters of an MRT station. Why? Because the data consistently shows that for every 100 meters you move closer to an MRT station, you add roughly 2 to 3% to your property's overall value. Proximity to transit is literally king. Let's break down Singapore's 28 districts to see how they stack up for value, yield, and safety. At the very top, we have Prime Central, districts 9, 10, and 11. This is where you're going to find your highest value and safest appreciation, though it typically comes with the lowest rental yield. Next up, the CBD in districts 1 and 2. High expat demand here translates to some really strong rental yields. Then we look at the East Coast, districts 15 and 16. This area carries a lifestyle premium and sees very good demand from families. And finally, the mass market out in the East and North, districts 18, 19, and 20. Believe it or not, this is where you actually find your best rental yield, combined with moderate, steady appreciation. The trick is to pick the district that matches the specific wealth-building phase you're in right now. Beyond just the location, there are a few more absolute essential criteria. First up, for pure wealth building, you really should aim for a minimum of 3 bedrooms. 1 and 2 bedroom units just have weaker resale demand and a much narrower pool of buyers. If you ever find yourself needing to sell quickly, a 3-bedroom unit moves so much faster because it appeals directly to families. Second, we have the endless debate, freehold versus leasehold. While freehold is fantastic if you want to pass down a legacy, always remember that location beats tenure. A 99-year leasehold in a phenomenal location will absolutely outperform a freehold property in a poor location. And finally, don't forget to check the developer's track record. Stick to the reputable names. Think Capital Land, Guoco Land, CDL, UOL, or Frasers, just to ensure you're getting quality and a reliable project delivery.
Section 4. Let's get into the mechanics with the step-by-step buying process. It sounds intimidating, but let's walk through this timeline together. Step 1. Secure your finances. You do this by approaching 2 to 3 banks for an in-principle approval, or IPA. For context, current rates for 2026 hover around 3 to 3.5% for fixed packages. Oh, and engage a buyer's agent. This is crucial. Unlike with HDDs, a buyer's agent in the private market costs you absolutely nothing. They share the commission paid by the seller. Step 2. Research those URA transaction prices so you actually know the fair market value. Once you agree on a price, you grant the option to purchase, or OTP. You'll pay a 1% fee of the purchase price, which locks the property down for you for 2 weeks. Step 3. Within those 2 weeks, you exercise that OTP by paying an additional 4% fee, bringing your initial payment to a total of 5%. Step 4. You now have 8 weeks to pay the remaining down payment. Remember, bank loans cover a maximum of 75%. Since you've already paid 5% in cash for the OTP, this remaining 20% can come straight from your CPF ordinary account or cash. And finally, Step 5. Your conveyancing lawyer wraps up the legal title transfer and you get to collect your keys. See? Not too bad.
And that brings us to Section 5, which is honestly my favorite part, the rental arbitrage strategy. Let's talk about generating passive income. So rental arbitrage is essentially the clever wealth builder's secret weapon. Here's how it works. Instead of living in your nice, expensive private condo, you move into a smaller, much cheaper rental property, like an HDB flat. Meanwhile, you rent out your newly owned private condo at a much higher market rate. The entire goal here is to generate positive cash flow. But a quick word of caution, this definitely adds some complexity to your life. You have to declare your rental income for taxes, you have to manage tenants, and you need to keep the property in good shape. Because of that, a lot of people just opt to use a property management company, which generally charges a fee of about 1 month's rent per year. Okay, let's run the actual math on this to show you why it's so powerful. Let's base this on a $1.4 million condo. Your monthly mortgage expense is going to be roughly $5,200. Now, you go out and rent a 2-bedroom HDB to live in, which costs you $2,500 a month. But here is where the magic happens. You rent out your 3-bedroom condo, and that brings in anywhere from $4,500 to $5,500 a month. Look at that net position. Your rental income is essentially covering most, if not all, of your massive condo mortgage. You are building incredible equity in a highly appreciative asset, while your tenants are quite literally the ones paying off your bank loan for you. It's brilliant.
So I want to leave you with this one final provocative question as we wrap up this explainer. Will you live in your asset, or will you let it pay for itself? It's a completely different way to look at real estate, isn't it? It's about shifting from a consumer mindset into a true investor mindset. Think about how this strategy could fit into your long-term legacy. And if this has your gears turning, you are absolutely going to love our next explainer. In episode 8, we are going to dive deep into perfectly optimizing the financing you need for this exact strategy. We're talking mastering bank loans, managing TDSR, and squeezing every single ounce of efficiency out of your CPF. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep focused on your goals, and I'll see you in the next explainer.